Hi, I'm Anna. I want to take you back to a day that seemed ordinary, but ended up being unforgettable. It was a warm Saturday morning, and I was on my way to my sister Kelly's house for a family gathering. As I drove up, I could already hear the chatter and laughter floating out from the backyard. It was one of those perfect days, with a bright sky and the smell of barbecue in the air. But something felt different. I couldn't quite place it, but I brushed it off, determined to enjoy the day. When I pulled up, Kelly was already at the door, waving eagerly. "Anna, we thought you'd never make it," she teased. I laughed, stepping out of my slightly beat-up silver sedan, loaded with bags of chips and my homemade guacamole. My car didn't exactly fit with the others in the driveway, which included my brother-in-law's spotless SUV. But I didn't care. I was just excited to be here, to catch up with family, and to share some big news of my own. As I joined the group in the backyard, I was hit by the warmth of family. Everyone was there. My parents, stationed by the grill, waved at me with huge smiles, while my younger cousins were already busy setting up a volleyball net. The air was filled with laughter and stories. And then there was Kelly's best friend, Chloe, who had known me since we were kids. Dressed impeccably, Chloe stood by the patio, casually sipping her drink and looking effortlessly put together as always. She spotted me and raised an eyebrow. "Hey, Anna," she said in a tone that seemed almost too sweet. "Still driving that old thing I see?" She nodded towards my car, giving it a quick once-over. I forced a smile, trying to brush off her comment. "Yep, it still works. Gets me where I need to go," I replied. But Chloe wasn't done. She took a long sip of her drink, her eyes narrowing. "Well, at least you're here," she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. I shrugged it off, but the sting of her words lingered. The day went on, and I found myself caught between enjoying the family time and feeling unsettled by Chloe's remarks. She had this way of making me feel small, like every choice I made was somehow beneath her standards. I knew it was petty, but every time I tried to push it out of my mind, another snide comment from her would pull me back. My brother Mike, sensing my tension, walked over and nudged me. "Don't let her get to you, Anna," he whispered. I nodded, trying to focus on the good around me, but Chloe's words kept echoing in my head. As we sat down for lunch, the conversation shifted to updates on everyone's lives. My moment finally came. I shared the news about my recent promotion. I'd been working at a tech company for years, and I'd just landed a managerial role. My family cheered, and my mom even got a little teary-eyed. But before I could soak in the moment, Chloe cut in. "Oh, that's great, Anna," she said with a slightly mocking smile. "So, does this mean you'll finally upgrade that car?" Everyone went quiet, and my heart sank. She had somehow managed to twist my achievement into something trivial. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to smile and shrug. "Maybe someday," I replied, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of knowing she'd gotten to me. My mom quickly jumped in, her voice warm and reassuring, and steered the conversation away. But I couldn't shake the frustration. Chloe's words had pierced through my excitement, leaving a dull ache that I couldn't ignore. Later in the day, as people gathered around the fire pit, Chloe continued to take little jabs at me. Each comment seemed carefully calculated to chip away at my confidence. At one point, she even remarked on my clothes, pointing out how casual I looked compared to everyone else. I kept my composure, but inside, I was seething. The family gathering was supposed to be a happy occasion, but it was quickly turning into a test of my patience. As the day wound down and the sun began to set, I caught a moment alone with Kelly. She noticed my expression and put a hand on my shoulder. "Hey, don't let her ruin your day," she said softly. "You've worked hard and we're all proud of you." I nodded, grateful for her support, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Chloe's words had done their damage. The evening wrapped up, and as I drove home in the quiet of my car, I found myself replaying every word Chloe had said. A few days later, I walked into my new office for my first day as a manager. The building was sleek and modern, with glass doors and polished floors. My nerves were a mix of excitement and anxiety, but I was ready to prove myself. The receptionist greeted me warmly, and as I walked into the elevator, I took a deep breath. This was my moment. When the elevator doors opened, I was greeted with applause. My new team was there, smiling and welcoming me. It felt surreal, and for the first time in days, I felt the tension ease. I shook hands with the director, Mr. Thompson, who introduced me to everyone as the new project manager. The energy in the room was electric, and I felt a surge of pride. But then, as I scanned the room, my heart skipped a beat. Standing at the back, looking stunned, was Chloe. Her face was pale and her eyes widened as our gazes met. I hadn't realized that Chloe worked here, and from the look on her face, she hadn't expected to see me either. After the introductions, Chloe approached me with a forced smile. "So, you're my new boss, huh?" she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and forced cheerfulness. I nodded, keeping my tone steady. "Looks like it." Inside, I was battling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt satisfaction, but another part of me felt uneasy. This was going to be complicated. Over the next few weeks, Chloe's behavior shifted. She seemed nervous, less confident than usual, especially during our one-on-one meetings. I noticed discrepancies in her work, deadlines missed, budgets poorly managed. It became clear that she had been cutting corners. I knew I had to address it, but the personal history made it harder. One afternoon during a meeting about the Smith account, I decided it was time. "Chloe, I've noticed some inconsistencies in your reports," I said, keeping my tone professional. Her face went pale, and she quickly tried to brush it off. "Oh, just some minor oversights. Tight deadlines, you know how it is." I didn't let her dodge the issue. "We need accuracy, Chloe. This is important for our clients." She nodded, but I could see the resentment in her eyes. This wasn't just about work anymore. There was a tension simmering between us that was becoming impossible to ignore. As we continued working together, Chloe's mistakes became more glaring. Each time I brought it up, she grew more defensive. Eventually, it reached a point where I had to document her performance issues. I knew it was risky, but my responsibility to the team came first. One day, after a particularly tense meeting, Chloe approached me in the hallway. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she snapped, her voice low but filled with accusation. I met her gaze, keeping my voice steady. "This isn't personal, Chloe. I have a job to do." She looked away, clearly frustrated, but she didn't say anything else. The tension only grew in the following weeks. I knew she felt cornered, and part of me sympathized, but I couldn't let her mistakes jeopardize our projects. The final straw came during a quarterly review meeting with Mr. Thompson. Chloe presented her report, but it was full of holes, unvetted vendors, over-budget costs, missed timelines. Mr. Thompson raised his eyebrows, and I knew this was it. "Chloe," I said, keeping my tone calm, "can you explain the discrepancies in your budget?" She stammered, her confidence visibly shaken. I had to make adjustments." But her excuses fell flat. After the meeting, Mr. Thompson called us into his office. The atmosphere was tense, and Chloe's face was drained of color. Mr. Thompson didn't mince words. "This is unacceptable. We hold ourselves to high standards, and it's clear that these mistakes can't continue." Chloe sat in stunned silence as he laid out the consequences. She was given a final warning, but I could see that her usual bravado was gone. As we left his office, she turned to me, her expression a mix of anger and defeat. "You could have helped me," she whispered, almost accusingly. I met her gaze, my voice steady but firm. "I gave you the chance to step up. It was your choice." Chloe didn't reply, and we walked away in silence. In the days that followed, I watched her struggle to regain her footing. She was quieter, more reserved, and I could see the weight of the situation wearing on her. At the next family gathering, I couldn't help but notice how different Chloe seemed. She was no longer the center of attention, her usual confidence subdued. My family, aware of the tension between us, didn't mention work. Instead, they focused on celebrating together, and for once, Chloe's jabs were absent. As I drove home that night, the events of the past few weeks played through my mind. This journey had been challenging, but I felt a sense of clarity. My job required tough decisions, and I knew I had done what was right. The road ahead wasn't easy, but I was ready to face it, knowing that integrity and resilience would guide me.